I managed a small apartment building for about 2 years. Nothing fancy. 12 units, 3 floors, mostly quiet people. Retirees, a couple of students, and a few folks who worked nights. My job was simple: collect rent, handle maintenance requests, and make sure nobody was trashing the place. It was easy money on top of my regular job. The building was old but in decent shape. The kind of place where you could hear your neighbor's TV through the wall if they had it up too loud. But nobody really complained. People kept to themselves. That was the culture there, and I liked it. Unit 14C had been empty for about 5 months when the new tenant moved in. His name was Gerald. Older guy, maybe late 50s, thin, polite, in a stiff kind of way, like he was reading from a script when he talked to you. He paid first and last month's rent in cash, which wasn't unusual for the building. He passed the background check fine. Nothing came up. The first month was normal. I didn't hear a single complaint about him. I barely saw him. Honestly, he didn't seem to leave much during the day. I'd sometimes see his light till late at night when I was looking up the front entrance. That was about it. Then Mrs. Pham in 4B came to me. She said she kept hearing something from Gerald's unit. Not music or TV. She described it as a repetitive tapping sound. Rhythmic. She said it would go on for hours, usually starting around 1 or 2 in the morning. She wasn't angry about it. She seemed more confused than anything. She said it sounded deliberate, like someone tapping on a hard surface with a single finger over and over. I told her I'd talk to him. I knocked on Gerald's door the next afternoon. He answered after a long pause. He was wearing the same clothes I'd seen him in the week before. He smiled when he saw me, but the smile didn't quite reach his eyes. I mentioned the noise complaint and he apologized immediately. Said he'd been doing some organizing and must have been making more noise than he realized. He said it wouldn't happen again. That was it. Mrs. Pham said the tapping stopped for about a week. Then it came back. Same pattern. Same time of night. I went to talk to him again. This time it took him longer to answer the door. When he did, the apartment behind him was dark. Completely dark. Even though it was the middle of the afternoon and the curtains were open, it took me a second to realize he had removed the light bulbs from the ceiling fixture in the hallway behind him. I could see the empty sockets. He apologized again. Same flat politeness. He said he'd take care of it. I started paying more attention after that. I noticed Gerald never took out trash. Not once. The bins for his floor were right next to the stairwell, and I checked them as part of my rounds. Everyone else's trash was there. His never was. He also never got mail. I sorted mail into the boxes every morning, and in 2 months, not a single piece went to 4C. Not even junk mail. That's the thing that actually bothered me. Everyone gets junk mail. You have to actively work to not receive any mail at all. Around month 3, the tenant below him, a college kid named Danny, asked me if there was a leak in the building. He said there was a smell in his unit he couldn't find the source of. Not sewage exactly. Something stale and sweet. He thought maybe something had died in the walls. A rat or a squirrel. I went up to check Gerald's unit. I knocked and got no answer. I waited an hour and knocked again. Nothing. I used my master key, which I was allowed to do for maintenance emergencies. I called out before I opened the door, and no response. The apartment was almost completely empty. No furniture in the living room, no dishes in the kitchen. The fridge was unplugged and standing open. The bedroom door was closed. I didn't open it. I don't know why. Something about the silence in that apartment felt heavy, like the air itself was holding still. I backed out and locked the door. Gerald appeared that evening like nothing had happened. I saw him in the stairwell. He nodded at me. I nodded back. I didn't mention that I'd been inside. 2 weeks later, he was gone. No notice. He just left. The unit was empty. When I went in to inspect it, everything was clean, spotless. Actually, cleaner than when he'd moved in. The only thing left behind was a small notebook on the kitchen counter. I opened it. Every page was filled with tally marks. Hundreds of them. Page after page. No words, no dates, just neat rows of tally marks from the front to back. I threw the notebook away and relisted the unit. I still think about those tally marks sometimes, what he was counting. And I think about the bedroom door that I didn't open. I tell myself there was nothing behind it, but I didn't check. And some part of me knows that's why I still sleep fine at night. I worked for a small moving company the summer after I dropped out of college. It was just me and 2 other guys, Carl and Pete. We had a box truck and we'd do local jobs, mostly helping people move in or out of apartments and houses in the suburbs south of the city. It was hard work but decent pay, and most of the time the customers were fine. We got a job in late August. A woman called and said she needed us to clear out a house on Wicker Lane. She said her mother had passed and she wanted everything taken to a donation center. She wouldn't be at the house. She'd leave the key under the mat and said we should just take everything that wasn't nailed down. Furniture, boxes, whatever wasn't there. She paid in advance through the company and that was that. We showed up on a Thursday morning. The house was at the end of a cul-de-sac. Small ranch style, probably built in the 70s. The lawn was overgrown and the mailbox was stuffed full. Normal stuff for a house where someone had passed. The key was under the mat like she said. Inside, the house was dim. All the curtains were drawn. Carl found the light switches but only about half the lights worked. The place smelled like dust and old fabric. There was furniture in every room. Heavy wooden stuff, dressers and bookshelves and a dining table with 6 chairs. It looked like the woman had lived there a long time. We started in the living room. It was slow going because the furniture was bulky and the hallways were narrow. While Carl and Pete carried the couch out, I started on the bookshelves. That's when I noticed the photos. There were framed photos on every surface. The mantle, the shelves, the side tables. All of them showed the same woman at different ages. Younger, middle-aged, older. Normal family photos, you'd think. But there was no one else in any of them. Every single photo was of her alone. No husband, no children, no friends standing beside her at a birthday party. Just her, alone in every frame, smiling at the camera. I didn't think much of it at first. Some people live alone their whole lives. That's not strange. We moved to the kitchen next. It was small and tidy. The fridge was empty and unplugged. The cabinets had dishes in them. I started wrapping plates and newspaper and packing them into boxes. Pete came in and opened the pantry. He went quiet. I looked over. The pantry was stocked, fully stocked. Canned goods, dry pasta, rice, and cereal. All of it recent. Expiration dates were months out. Some of the items still had grocery store stickers with dates from 2 weeks before we arrived. The woman who hired us said her mother had passed. She didn't say when, but the impression I got was that it had been a while. The overgrown lawn, the stuffed mailbox, but this pantry looked like someone had gone shopping recently. Pete and I looked at each other. He shrugged. We packed it all up. The bedroom was last. It was the darkest room in the house. One window, curtain pinned shut with thumbstacks. A single bed, neatly made, a dresser, a nightstand with a glass of water on it. The water was clear, no dust on the surface. I touched the glass. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't stale either. Carl noticed the closet. The door was open a few inches. Inside, the clothes were divided into 2 distinct sections. On the left were women's clothes, old-fashioned, the kind you'd expect from an elderly woman. On the right were men's clothes, work boots on the floor, a jacket that smelled like cigarette smoke. I called the woman who'd hired us. I told her we found men's clothing and wanted to confirm we should take everything. She paused for a long time. Then she said her mother lived alone, had lived alone for over 30 years. She said to take it all. We finished the job in about 4 hours. On the last trip through the house, I checked every room to make sure we hadn't missed anything. In the bathroom, behind the door, there were 2 toothbrushes in the holder. One was old and worn, the other looked brand new. I locked the house and put the key back under the mat. On the drive to the donation center, none of us said much. Pete finally asked if we thought someone else had been living there. Carl said it was probably nothing, a relative staying over, a friend. But the woman said her mother lived alone. 30 years. I never followed up on it. It wasn't my business, but sometimes I think about the glass of water on the nightstand. How it looked like someone had poured it that morning. And I wonder who was going to come back to drink it. I did overnight security for a commercial office building downtown for about 8 months. The Grainey building, 11 floors. During the day it was full of accountants and insurance people and small law firms. And at night it was just me. My shift was 10 at night to 6 in the morning. The job was mostly nothing. I sat at the front desk, watched the camera feeds, and did a walkthrough of each floor every 2 hours. The building was locked down tight up to 7, so I rarely saw anyone. Once in a while a lawyer would come in late to grab files. But they'd badge in and I'd see them on the cameras. Simple. I started in January. By February I had the routine down cold. The building made noises at night, sure. The heating system clicked and hummed. The elevator settled. Old building stock. I got used to it fast. The thing I want to tell you about started in March. I was doing my midnight walkthrough. I always started at the top floor and worked my way down. 11, then 10, then 9, all the way to the basement. I'd check doors and make sure nothing looked off. And move on. Each floor took maybe 3 minutes. On the 7th floor, I noticed one of the office doors was open. Suite 714. It belonged to a small accounting firm. I'd walked past it hundreds of times. The door was always locked. That night it was open about 6 inches. The lights inside were off. I pushed it open and looked in with my flashlight. Empty. Desks, chairs, filing cabinets, everything normal. I pulled the door shut and it locked with a click. I noted it in my log and moved on. The next night, same thing, suite 714. Door open, same 6 inches. I checked inside again and nothing. Locked it again. Third night, same thing. I started checking the camera footage. The 7th floor hallway camera covered that stretch. I went back through the recordings from the previous nights. Here's what I saw. Nothing. The door was closed in one frame, and then in the next frame, maybe 30 seconds later, it was open. No one in the hallway, no one near the door. It just went from closed to open between frames. The cameras recorded at a low frame rate. So there were gaps, but there was no one there. I reported it to the building manager. He said that the latch was probably faulty and he'd have someone look at it. A maintenance guy came out and checked the door. He said the lock and latch were fine, working perfectly. The door kept opening every single night, always on my midnight round, always the same 6 inches. I started dreading the 7th floor, not because I thought something wasn't there. I checked every time, nothing ever was. It was the consistency of it that got to me, the precision, same door, same amount, same time. In April, I changed my routine. I did my midnight round starting from the basement going up. When I reached the 7th floor, the door was open, same 6 inches, as if it knew when I was coming regardless of direction. I tried something else. I skipped the midnight round one night. Did my rounds at 11:30 instead. The door was closed at 11:30. When I checked again at 12:15, it was open. It was waiting for midnight. I put a small piece of tape on the door frame one evening, just a thin strip across the gap between the door and the frame, so I'd know if it physically moved. At midnight, the tape was broken, clean break. The door was open its usual 6 inches. I never heard it open, not once, and I started listening for it. I'd stand at the end of the 7th floor hallway at 11:55 and watch the door. It stayed closed. I'd watch it right up until midnight, then I'd blink or glance at my phone for the time, and when I looked back, it was open. I could never catch the moment it happened. The last straw was in May. I was doing my round and I got to the 7th floor. Suite 714 was open, as usual. But that night, when I shined my flashlight inside, one of the office chairs had been moved. It was in the center of the room, facing the door, facing me. Every other night, the office looked exactly the same. Nothing out of place. That night, the chair was pulled into the middle of the room like someone had been sitting in it, waiting. I finished my shift. I quit the next day, told them I found something better. The building manager didn't ask questions. I looked up the Grainey building and a few months later. Suite 714 was listed as vacant. The accounting firm had moved out years before I started. The building manager had never mentioned that. As far as I knew, it was an active office, but according to the leasing records, no one had occupied Suite 714 in over 4 years. The door was always locked. The lock worked perfectly, and every night at midnight it opened. I don't have an explanation. I'm not sure I want one.